Mm, okay, there we go. Tom, will you do the honors, please? Maybe.
Bear, bear with me. I'm sorry. My name is Tom Morris, president and founder of Connor Strong, and we do these monthly. And I certainly appreciate everybody taking the time to join us and learn from Robin and her expertise on, I think, a subject that is somewhat unique. And I know personally for me, I'm experiencing it right now. So I won't say much more. I'll turn it back over. And again, thank you all.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Is that okay, Katie? I'll just jump in.
Yeah, no, jump in. You're
All
good.
right.
It's your show. I'm just
So
recording.
I'm Robin Mellenbeck. I am the director for the George Mason University Center for Community Mental Health, which is the main training clinic for doctoral students in clinical psychology. And we serve the community. We are not the Mason Student Counseling Center. They have their own counseling center. Um, we work with kids as young as age 5 all the way through adulthood. We're training clinical psychologists, counselors, and social work students to become basically the next generation of ethical and very well trained behavioral health providers. And we are thrilled to be partnering with Connor Strong Foundation to provide this monthly seminar series. And tonight we're going to talk about graduation blues, helping your teen navigate what's next. Um, Feel free to put questions in the chat. Katie's helping me monitor the chat. I'll keep an eye on it. I'm hoping that we'll have some time for questions at the end as well. And as Katie mentioned, we are recording this, and this will be available to go back to on both the Connor Strong and the CCMH websites, as well as we will be sending you a copy of these slides afterwards in a PDF form. So you will get a copy of all these slides. Okay, so let's get started. So in addition to my professional life, I am also the proud mom of 2 young adults who took very different paths as we were kind of navigating the end of high school for each of them. My son Josh, I think was pretty burnt out of school, but really, really wanted to go straight to a 4-year college. Did a great job applying, getting some scholarships, went to the University of Mary Washington. Of course, right then COVID hit, which again was not helpful for most of our college students. Decided to take some time off, worked for a year and a half at the Starbucks at Target, learned a lot about the service industry, and recently decided to go back to finish his degree at Mason. Of course, again, proud mama here. My daughter was in high school when COVID hit, which definitely made things much more difficult. She had, by the time she was coming to graduation, she had no idea whether she wanted to take a year off, whether she wanted to go to school. She applied to a few schools just to see. And then she ended up making the decision not to take a gap year, but to go straight to the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown for nursing. And so she's currently in her freshman year. Again, though, the thought process for both of my kids was very different. Um, at the same time, I think despite my husband and myself having a focus of they could decide what they wanted to do next after high school, both I think felt a lot of pressure to go straight to a 4-year school. And we're going to talk about that tonight too, because I think a lot of our teens here in Northern Virginia in particular feel that pressure. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about some key issues that teens navigate as they approach graduation. We're going to talk about several strategies about how you as a parent, we may have some professionals, sitting in tonight, how you can talk to the teens about their post-graduation plans. And for all you parents, I'm going to really ask you to commit to talking with your teen and listening. I think that's one of the hardest things sometimes to do when we're thinking about, we know we've had experience, we've been there, and we want to share that experience, or we've had a bad experience. We don't want our teen to go through that, or young adult. So I will ask at the end that everybody commit to not just talking at your teen, but with your teen and listening. Okay. To start though, when we're thinking about, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, what is developmentally normal for our kids? And one of the things I always love to remind people is that autonomy is a very natural part of this age range. Okay. This goes even beyond 18. So young adults, 16, let's say even to 20, can be less communicative. They often enjoy arguing back, getting their point made, but they have lots of reasons for their decisions. There is a focus on their peers. They may not be reasons that as adults we agree with, but they have reasons. On the social and emotional side, this is really a key time of developing a sense of self. A lot of times, these young adults are still seeking a cause. They want to be parts of teams, groups. They experiment with identity. For some teens, identity is quite set by this point when we think about gender or sexual identity, but they're still trying to figure out how they fit in the world and where they want to fit in the world. Cognitive wise, they have an expanded thought process, lots of meta thinking. So thinking about thinking is very common. And sometimes that can drive parents crazy because you are, trying to have a straight conversation, and your teen all of a sudden, or your young adult, is going into these big kind of concepts that to us feels like it has nothing to do with anything, but it's again reflective of their expanded thought processes. By this point, hopefully, and most young adults who are looking at college have some set methods for studying. They, are planning for their future, even if they're not sure what that means. They have some realism, lots of sense of invulnerability. That is really key in this cognitive developmental stage. And it's also important for us to remember that, those of you who have heard me talk before, I talk about the adolescent half-baked brain. And even as these kids are graduating high school, they are still kids in some ways, even though they're expected to be young adults. And we have to remember that brain development continues until around age 25. So there's still a lot of moving parts going on normally for these young adults. And as your teens are finishing high school, in addition to all of these big, big, big questions, they're still trying to manage classes. They're still trying to do sports or theater or chorus or activities. They want to spend all their time with their friends because all of a sudden everyone's going to be graduating. And after, for some of them, 12 years with people, for some only 4 years, but it's every day you see the same people, and all of a sudden everyone's going to be going in different directions. So that brings a heightened urgency for people to be able to, for our young adults at school. Teachers, leaving the teachers that they know what to expect. Some of these teachers have been around, or in your young adult's life for all 4 years. Some are newer, some are great. They're also trying to manage expectations. There's an inherent excitement about graduation. Yay, you're at the end of your high school career. You've finished all of, K through 12, all your required school. There's a lot of pressure to feel excited, happy. This is wonderful. But yet there are a lot of mixed emotions that come with graduating high school. And a lot of our young adults don't feel like they can share those. The fear, the anxiety, what's next? And well-intentioned adults, okay, as soon as you hear, you know, your friend's son is finishing senior year, oh, what are they doing next? Where are they going to college? Where are they looking? You know, so again, it's all well-intentioned, but that pressure of you know, the expectation of everybody needs to know what they're doing after graduation. Chances are in this area, they're going to college. Well, what about those kids who are not interested in college or who have different things they might want to do? And the reality is there are so many choices. You know, it can be very overwhelming. Do you go to the four-year college? Do you go into the military? I mean, very few people talk about that these days, unless you're going to one of the academies. Community college. We have an incredible program here in Northern Virginia where if you do your first 2 years at Nova, get a certain GPA, you have guaranteed admission to any of the public four-year colleges. And that's where you end up with your final bachelor's degree. Do you work? You know, are you fried from school and just start to earn some money? Do you take a gap year? If you take a gap year, do you work? Do you travel? Do you do a program? You know, what about trade school? You know, we really desperately need people who can do plumbing and electric, you know, there are people who are very good at that. And my question to all of you is how many of these do we really talk about? So if everybody who is not on the phone, who actually is at a computer, can just put in the chat of all of these choices, what has come up for you personally? Like, have you had any interaction with somebody? Which of these choices have you heard about? Okay, so all of them. Okay, that's great. All except gap year, working apprenticeship, trade school, college, mostly college. Okay, I'm impressed because again, in this area, usually it's college. That is what I hear about. Okay. But it's great that some of you guys have talked about all of this with your seniors. Okay. So again, this may be a little bit of kind of preaching to the choir since so many of you have actually talked about some of these different options, but I do think it's important for parents to really take a little bit of self-reflection too, and kind of think about what are you expecting from your teen? You know, how are you going to feel if they choose X or Y? You know, how are you going to share that with your friends who are asking, oh, what's your senior doing next year? You also want to take into account what are your teens expecting of themselves? Again, I hear over and over again the pressure to go one path. A lot of the teens I talk to, it's like, oh, I know that I could save money by going to the community college, and I know I could finish at another, but I'm never going to be successful. And I couldn't tell my friends I was going to Nova. You know, so again, lots of self expectations that may or may not be realistic. Okay. Because more and more kids that you talk to and young adults, you do hear different paths. But when you're actually in the school setting, you often people don't talk about the other paths. So that gets to the third question. How are your teens comparing themselves to others? Are they able to kind of look at themselves? Are they able to kind of look at their interests, their strengths? Or are they really just comparing to, you know, the folks that got early decision to UVA, Virginia Tech, or one of the Ivies? And then the last, going back to parents, how are you modeling what those expectations are? Again, I found with both of my kids, no matter how much I said, You know, it's totally fine if you want to take a year off and figure out what you want to do. You know, try a few things, or, you know, go to Nova just to get some college credits and work, you know, while you're figuring out a direction. Didn't matter. You know, both of them felt that pressure, despite how we felt we were modeling. We felt we were modeling lower expectations. You know, again, it's the cool thing is I can talk to them now a little bit more, and they both agreed that part of it was their own expectations, but modeling the different options. Okay, so I love this comic. Many children live at home after college, but it's okay to live at home before college too. You know, again, I think this is a positive thing, that I think at least the young adults are feeling less pressure to have to live on their own and move out, although they want to. Again, remember, autonomy is one of the main developmental things they're going through. So they don't want to live at home, but it's not as bad as if they do now. Okay. And every parent, most parents, really want what's best for their young adult. And so I just kind of threw up a couple of things to consider. You know, what if they're not ready for college? What if all their friends are going away and they are not? Okay, so again, you might have a young adult who says, I really want to work for a year, kind of figure things out, maybe take one class at Nova, but then all their friends are going away. You know, how can you support your team in that way? This I always find very fascinating. Again, I think there's some cultural piece here too, but let's say you have a very artistic um, young adult and they want to go study art, and you want them to do a science major or med school or anything they can earn a living in that's not art. Um, and again, things to consider with that. Is that a family value? Is that a cultural? Is that really what's best for your child? Um, there's lots of different areas that people can earn livings in. But as I'll jump down, there are significant financial implications for these next steps. And I think that also makes it hard. You know, I would love for my child to go study art. But if I pay, you know, $100,000 for a college degree, what if they can't get a job? So again, we'll talk a little more about that. And then last, just, you know, what if they have no idea what they want? You know, if they truly have no idea what they want, what is the best course? As parents, I think you have the ability to make some suggestions and let them noodle on it, and have a good talk and let them noodle on it. And also remind them that there are options, you know, and whatever they choose as their first option does not mean that's what they're stuck with. I think that's another really important point, is letting our kids know that, you know, whatever they pick first might be a good match, might not, and that's okay. Okay. Any questions so far before I get into a little bit more of nitty gritty of talking? All right, just so you all know, I don't see any faces, so you know, definitely use the chat so I can.
There's nothing new in the chat.
Okay. All right. So first hint, which you may have already gotten from, you know, my lead up here, is you need to understand yourself as a parent, as a professional, and what are your family and cultural values. I mean, it makes a difference how you approach this. You need to know kind of where you're coming from first. And so, you know, is a 4-year college a must? And Is it okay if it's a college that, you know, is not the highest ranked college? Or does it have to be a certain level of stature for your family? Okay, sorry, I was just looking at the chat. Yes, Ashley made a comment that some cultural implications are a pressure, as I hear from the youth I work with. Absolutely. And definitely eat dinner while we're talking. You don't have to turn on your cameras for that. um, absolutely. I mean, and this is why I think the family values, the cultural values, it's really important. Um, you know, for families to be able to go into these conversations knowing where they stand. I think of several families, rather than kind of give a cultural background, I'll just say I've worked with quite a number of families from TJ High School, which is the magnet high school, has a very high expectation, high academics. And, you know, one of the kids I worked with just was into art. I think that's how I came up with that example. And yet he was in a science and technology high school. He was in a culture that valued education, with the expectation of higher education. You know, really, the expectation was to become a doctor. And he truly loved art. And, you know, the reason the family came to us was because of the student's depression, including suicidal ideation. And we did a lot of family work, you know, to really kind of say, how do we capture your family values, your cultural values, while supporting this amazing young adult? And what could that look like that might be a little different? Um, and it really, actually, that particular family was amazing because the parents really loved their kid and were able to communicate that, contrary to certain cultural values, if he wanted to go to art school, they were going to support him in that. And we were able to pull out the worries, and the things that were blocking that. So that was really very powerful. But you got to know where you're coming from first. You know, and so again, would it be okay if your teen worked at Starbucks, you know, instead of going to college? Would you be okay if your teen enlisted in the military? And how would you feel about talking with other parents about your teen's decision? Do you feel like you can support whatever decision that is? And thinking back when you left high school, how did you feel? I mean, it's a major change no matter which direction you go. And we have a much more complicated life right now, I think, than when many of us left high school. Either way, it's a major change. It's just, you know, it's a whole lifestyle change. Okay. Second, use your good communication skills. And my first hint on that, timing is key. Okay. You want to find a time when both of you are ready to talk. You want to avoid times when people are tired, upset, etc. I always laugh with this because, you know, in the car is often one of the best times to talk. Maybe going to get a coffee at Starbucks or your local coffee place or tea. My kids are night owls and I am not. And inevitably, 10:30 at night would be when they wanted to talk. And I am like, turn into, you know, I basically fall asleep by 10 at the latest, let alone be cohesive enough to have serious talks. Having said that, for several years, 10:30 to midnight, man, those talks happened. Yep. So Kristen said, yep. these conversations, again, when we think developmentally, young adults, actually their circadian rhythm is better for them to be more focused at night and not in the morning, but not for us. And yes, the car is great. Especially if we used to have a rule that if you were up in the front, no cell phones, no devices if you were sitting up front. And that would just lead to some talking. If the conversation does start to get heated though, and this would happen at times at 11:30 at night when, again, I'm not functioning very well, either party needs to have permission to call a break. And so whether that's the parent, whether that's the young adult, just be upfront. If we're talking and it's not going well, either of us can say break. And you want to stick to the facts in the present. I think as a parent, I've got this whole store of experiences and memories and things my kid did really well and things my kid didn't do so well, and worry based on history, what's going to happen next. And when we're talking about kind of this post-graduation, what are we going to do after graduation? Our young adults are going to be very sensitive about using the past to predict the future. And so when you're talking and you're kind of throwing out some of these ideas or listening to their ideas, you want to stay very present and fact oriented. Okay. So you told me, that you were thinking of joining the Navy. Okay. Let's talk about what that would look like. Is this something you feel would be a good match? Okay. We were talking about maybe working part-time and taking classes at the community college. Let's talk about some of the good things of that, the not so good things. What would that look like? So no judgment, really just trying to go through the facts and stick to the present conversation. Not, remember how much you struggled with X. I don't think it's a good idea for you to do Y. Okay. I like to call this strategy give to get, where you're starting with a statement that really shows how much you care about the other person's feelings or perspective. Again, a lot of these discussions about post-graduation tend to start to come off as, let me share my wisdom with you. It's hard to step back and kind of start with a statement that shows you've noticed something going on for your teen, your young adult, that you care about their feelings or perspective. So I've noticed you've been really stressed with all the end of year demands at school and home. I wonder what we can do together to help you manage all these demands. Okay. So again, I'm starting with noticing, kind of stating that I'm actually aware, and I'm worried about you. But without saying I'm worried about you, because they don't like that either. But I'm wondering how we can help manage these demands. What can we do? Any questions about any of this so far? I've got two more of. Next, listen. And sometimes this is really hard. Active listening. You want to look at the person with a calm, neutral face. You don't want to be scrunching your nose or doing sighs or, kind of making like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about faces? I have a really bad poker face, so I had to work on this a little bit sometimes because my emotional response would show in my face, and that would kind of effectively shut down a conversation at times. So, really looking at the person, staying, kind of keeping your facial, calm and neutral. You want to nod, you want to show that you're listening, acknowledge, the uh-huh. You want to ask open-ended questions. This is really important with young adults, using the how, what, who even, but if you say, did you have a good day today? Are you thinking about going to UVA? That's a yes or no question. Open-ended, where are you at with thinking about college? How are you thinking about, what you want to do in the month after you graduate? Open-ended questions, because otherwise you'll get a yes, a no, and that'll be the end of the conversation. And then you also want to repeat back. Active listening involves showing that you've actually heard what they're saying, not just the facts, but the feelings too. I mean, the what are you actually hearing? So, okay, so I heard that you're really not sure, even though you got into a couple of colleges, you're not sure if you want to go straight to college or if you want to work for a little while before, and maybe, not be in school full time. It sounds like that's really a hard struggle for you to decide. Okay. Again, no judgment. I'm just repeating back what they have shared. So again, some examples of this active listening is as your young adult is sharing with you, open-ended, you seem frustrated about how every adult you see is asking you about college. Or can you tell me more about what you're thinking? These seem to be the key ideas you've just shared. Do I have it right? You seem motivated to do this. What are you thinking about X? Okay. These are just some really good beginning statements that show that you're listening. And what do you need to hear as a parent, or just any adult in these young adults' lives during this time period? We want to hear and really listen. What is their opinion? How are they talking about post-graduation? How are they talking about the college applications, acceptances, rejections? How are they talking about themselves in relation to their peers? Are you hearing, I'm the only one who's not doing X? And then also the other important things to hear, how exhausted are they? Are they struggling with any mental health issues? This is a tough, tough time. This semester, second semester, senior year, I mean, the emotions are all over the place. The demands are high, the expectations are high, and we really want to help our young adults kind of make sure that they stay grounded and that, the extreme thinking that can happen. I got rejected from UVA, I might as well give up. We want to hear those things so that we can help our young adults make sure that they realize there are choices all over the place. Two of my closest friends, one of whom I met in graduate school, he did 2 years of community college down in Texas, transferred to the University of Texas, 4-year degree, then ended up going on to grad school, ultimately ended up being a psychologist who set the behavioral health policies for primary care in the military, the entire military. Okay, he started a community college. He wasn't even sure he wanted to keep going to school, but the community college offered him a tennis scholarship. There's so many different directions people can go and be successful. Okay. Helping our young adults realize that choices are okay. And if they feel they have too many choices, helping them kind of narrow down, what do you want to just try? is really important too. Okay, what to avoid? I like this one because I think parents are famous for these communication pitfalls, as I like to call them. Mind reading, we're lousy at it. I mean, everybody's lousy at mind reading, and we still think we're good at it. So, just remind yourself if you think you know what somebody else is thinking, whether it's your child, whether it's your work colleague, chances are you're wrong. So let's not do mind reading. Let's talk or communicate. Blaming and denying. Um, a simple comment like, yeah, you wanted to go to UVA, but you didn't study when you were in your junior year. You goofed off, so take the realistic consequences. They don't need that blame at that point because they have had a natural consequence. It's really thinking about, again, let's talk. What if this is really what you want to do? If you really want to be at UVA, maybe let's look at NOVA, guaranteed admission to UVA after 2 years if you keep your GPA up. Is that an option? Changing the subject. Again, this is hard and I'm a problem solver. So sometimes when my kids are just kind of wanting to talk through a whole bunch of things, I'm like, okay, so let's do A, B, and C. Let's try to solve this problem. And in essence, I change the subject. That's not helpful. That's not a good communication. Tuning out, especially if you've got your cell phone near you and, oh, that text comes in and you say, oh, just a minute, let me check this. That's not going to help good communication. Interrupting your teen, again, at 11 o'clock at night, that can be really hard to not interrupt, but try not to interrupt. And then lecturing. It's very easy to get into lecturing. And I call this the 15-second Charlie Brown rule. If anybody has seen all the Peanuts specials and Charlie Brown, and anytime the adult talks, it's wah, 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 wah. And our young adults, teens, kids, after 15 seconds, that's all they hear. Wah, 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 wah. So if you are going to lecture, make sure you get whatever you need to say in that first 15 seconds. Okay. And then I do want to, I've been saying all these things parents can do. And just because you really listen doesn't mean you have to agree. Okay. It doesn't mean you're giving in to everything they say. The act of listening is what's important. It doesn't mean you're going to kind of say, yes, of course, do whatever you want. I love this comic for those of you who know Foxtrot. Mom is saying to her, I guess, junior, hey, Peter, have you given any thought to what colleges you might want to visit this summer? Not really. Why? Your father and I are trying to decide where to take you kids for our family vacation, and it'd be nice if we could kill two birds with one stone. Maybe once finals are over, you can put together a list of the things you're looking for in a school, and we can find a few good candidates and go from there. And then he says, I can give you a list right now if you want. Number 1, world-class food. Number 2, hot babes. 3, luxurious dorm rooms. 4, no morning classes. 5, a cushy, high-paying job waiting for me after graduation. And mom says, so basically we should vacation at Disney World then. And he says, why Disney World? She says, isn't that where Fantasyland is located? Oh, and number 6, affordable tuition. So I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. Okay, so let's jump a little bit to you and your teen, young adult, make some decision about what's next. Once a decision's made, you want to be supportive. You want to be upfront about your limitations, any non-negotiables, including financial. You want all conversations can be teachable moments. Remember the goal is your young adult becoming independent. And you want to normalize seeking help in all areas, academic, social, mental health, physical health, because if our kids go off to college, if they go to the military, if they go away for a gap year, you want to make sure that they feel confident that they will seek help when they need it. Okay, just wanted to make sure there wasn't a comment. Okay, so let's presume your young adult's going away. You know, it's also important to have that conversation about what finances your young adult is responsible for and what you will help with. And you want to be clear. So we have put money away in a 529. We will cover your tuition and room and board. If you go out with your friends, you are responsible for that. If you join a sorority fraternity, you are responsible for that financial. If, you know, gas, if you have a car, access to a car, you are responsible. But you want to be really clear where the finances are. You know, you want to discuss, and this is true too, even if we're doing military gap year, basically anytime your kid's going away, is what I would say. You know, have you discussed drinking, vaping, drug use? Does your young adult know where you stand on it? Do they know, you know, what are their thoughts on it? You know, I think like our high schools, the colleges, vaping is huge right now. I mean, historically, we always think about drinking at college, but vaping is huge. Have you discussed safety issues? You know, partying, walking alone on campus? Where are the resources? You know, are there other safety concerns? What does your teen have, young adult have safety concerns? And then I always love this one. How will you handle communication while your young adult is away? And this is the hardest for parents. So, you know, we're so used to immediate communication, you know, whether it's tracking, you know, Life 360, we know where our kid is. We're texting all the time. We know they have curfews. They have to be home by a certain time. You know where they are. As your young adult's getting ready to go away and they are trying to become more independent, you have to kind of negotiate what is the expectation of communication. You know, again, my youngest just went to Pitt this fall, and our conversation was, I am going to try as a parent not to text you. I am here for you. You text me. I would love to hear about how things are going. I'd love to know you're okay, but I'm going to take your lead. And it wasn't long before, just because of, again, who she is and our relationship, that, you know, we text at least once or twice a day on various things. But again, I don't text any serious things. I let her kind of come to me with the more serious things. Often our text is, oh, this was a really cute kitten thing, you know, wanted to share it with you. Okay. Logistical things, just a reminder that when your young adult turns 18, your access to almost all of their information ends, whether it's doctor's offices, whether it's prescriptions, whether it's, I mean, just about anything. And again, having this good communication can help your teen understand why it helps for you to still have access to records, medical, even as you're teaching them how to handle some of those things. And so we do recommend, if your young adult is going away, get a power of attorney and have the young adult sign permission for you to access medical, legal, financial accounts if they are incapacitated. If your child is going away, the last thing you want is all of a sudden they're in an emergency room and nobody will talk to you because there is no medical power of attorney. Okay. And they haven't been able, you know, to give you or give the permission. Colleges have their own forms as to what, you know, that the young adults can sign, as to what they will share. Often it's financial that we have access to and nothing else. But again, that medical in particular can be so helpful, you know, even if, you know, again, Caitlin had to go to an urgent care in the fall. And I had to talk to them about the payment and the insurance thing. And, you know, she had signed a form there for me to be able to do that. But if she hadn't, they wouldn't have been able to talk to me about it. You know, so again, this is just one of those things that we do recommend. I know some people there is a company called Mama Bear Legal Forms. It's not necessary because it really is a basic power of attorney, but some people like that because then it's at least a package altogether. And you can explain to your young adult that adulting is hard and no one does it alone. You know, I may consult with a friend or my significant other, you know, around things. Nobody does it fully alone. Okay, so some resources. Oh, I didn't even know I had done that. These were a couple of really good resources that I found on Career Advice. The Springboard blog, I just thought was really interesting around things to do after college, including, you know, giving some of these different ideas, not just, or I'm sorry, things to do after high school. Your guidance counselor at school is phenomenal. And if they know your teen, even if your teen's graduated, so many of them love to talk to the kids afterwards and are happy to, you know, make suggestions, be a sounding board. The two other resources, I was looking for my book. Sorry, I thought I had it right here. This is a really fun book that is often a good graduation gift. It's not coming through.
It's really blurred. What's it called? I'll put it in the chat.
There we go. It's this one right here, The Naked Roommate. It's on the slide, so you'll have it. The Naked Roommate and 107 other issues you might run into in college. Again, it says college, but it's very relevant to any time that you're going to have a roommate situation, military, gap year, you know, an apartment that you might be, several people might be sharing. So that it's a fun book. My daughter actually got several copies for graduation gifts. So that's the only thing I would check. And then this other excellent website newsletter that I know I use many times, it's called Grown and Flown. It's by two moms, and they do all kinds of blogs. They have great suggestions. Again, I should have said this early on, you know, I have no financial disclosures to offer. I don't get any money from the book or this website or any of these other resources. I'm just sharing them as ones that I felt are helpful and reputable. But Grown and Flown, in fact, I just got an email today that had a really interesting blog around, you know, the what if your teen has no idea what to do. And so that's a great one. And then mental health resources, I just want to make sure I mention, obviously, we have our Center for Community Mental Health in Fairfax. You know, for your young adults going off, we have a free emotional support line in English and Spanish that they can call 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. If they ever just wanted to talk to somebody, it's anonymous, it's confidential. It is targeted for people 18 and over. I guarantee you we've had a few 16, 17-year-olds call because, again, it's anonymous and confidential. So we don't collect age data. But there are also therapy services that you can look at as well. And it's always good for your teen and young adult to just have some of these mental health 24-hour emergency resources available. These are on high school web pages, but once they go to college, sometimes they don't always, or to the next thing, they don't always have this easily accessible. And so that's why I like to summarize a page as well. And I think that was it, but I had a question. Nope, no questions. So that's where
Rob,
I
can
was
make a
gonna,
comment?
sure.
when we lived in Fairfax, our next door neighbor, their daughter went to TJ. Okay.
Mhm.
And 3 of her 4 years she was there, she went to the doctors quite a bit with stomach troubles, and she had a whole set, and I think a lot now
Yeah.
is anxiety. But one of the things they did there is when somebody got into a top-notch college, they had some kind of, I understand, some kind of board there. So, Robin got accepted to Harvard, somebody at Yale. And so the
Mhm.
pressure was immense on these kids. Are they still doing that in the schools? I guess in the standard high schools, that was also the case.
I think so what I know, at least the high school our kids went to, they had a kind of, this is what I'm doing after graduation. So it wasn't a college board. And they put it on social media, not like on a big board at the school. And the kids did like it, and there was a range, it was not all four-year colleges. So I do think schools are probably still showing publicly what the kids are deciding to do. Now, again, at the high school that our kids were at, I think they could choose whether to participate in that or not. I think. I wouldn't be surprised if TJ still has a college board.
I've
So
also seen
Kristen's,
something, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt. I was gonna say, I've seen something going around where people were highlighting a signing day, like, so some students sign their sports
Mm.
contract and they go off to college. They were having a signing day for the trade school. So like
Oh,
they were still being
yeah.
celebrated for making a different choice, and whatever that was, they were still having that little ceremony and making them feel special.
Yeah.
I know
And Chris,
I was gonna say Jack goes to a private school and every Thursday, the kids get to wear whatever they're going to do, whatever school they're going to go to, like their, that jersey or sweatshirt or whatever, or if they're going into a trade or whatever, they get to wear something that reflects that, so like Jack wants to go to the fire department, so he's wearing a Fairfax County Fire Department sweatshirt. But they do it that way.
so, I think there has been an effort to try to expand options. And Kristen put in the chat, for those of you who are on the phone, our high school is working hard to focus on each student, quote, quote, having a plan after graduation. I've seen a huge difference in the last 3 years from when my daughter was there. So that's great. Again, helping them have a plan, not the plan.
Robin, I had a quick question, and
Yeah.
regarding it goes to a plan. And so, like I mentioned, Jax wants to go into the fire department. That's his plan A.
Mm-hmm.
He's had that plan for years, and it's kind of a catch-22 because he did come up with a plan B, but his concern, and it's he saw a college that he would like to go to. It's nice and small, but his concern is, I guess it's more of an anxiety of, I don't know what I want to do
Mm-hmm.
if plan A fails. So I don't know, like, I can't just think about college because I don't know what kind of career I would want if the fire department didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you have any recommendations about talking them through? And as much as I've tried, I told him I switched from accounting to business to not finishing, and I have a sales career, but he doesn't want to hear it. So I'm just trying to.
Right.
Do you have any recommendations on how to get a kid that insists that he has to know what he wants to do for the rest of his life at age 19 if he goes to college, versus you don't have to declare a degree?
I think part of it is, again, we want to impart our wisdom and they're not going to want to hear it. So I would think about who are the other adults too, who can share, I thought this was what I was going to do for the rest of my life, and I've made these 3 changes. Again, just really emphasizing that most people make changes. You know, again, there can be plan A through F, you know, if he is a planner, you know, but plan A through F may all be effective. So, you know, but I would think about who are some of the other adults who have also made different changes. You know, I've been lucky that I've always wanted to be a psychologist, but what I thought I wanted to do way back when is so different than what I do now. I never would have imagined the twists and turns, you know, that happened. I know lots of people that, you know, have made incredible careers and have had 3 careers. So I don't know if that helps, Tom.
It does, and I hadn't thought about tapping into the outside people that he might listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. Systems are so important. I mean, because again, it's a community. So, you know, if there's people at school or coaches or other fire department folks who maybe it wasn't their first, you know, job, those are great people to kind of share their paths.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions I can answer in our last couple of minutes? I'll hang out for another minute or two or a couple minutes, but I did want to just thank everybody for taking the time tonight. Our next one is April 11th, and the presentation will be on, what is it going to be on? Breaking the Stigma, talking with your kids about mental health. Okay, so I hope many of you will join us for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah,
We'll
thanks.
make sure that this presentation gets emailed out in a couple days with the recording and slides, just in case anybody, you know, would like to go back and review it. So watch your emails for that.
Great.
Thank you, Ms. Robin.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Have a
you.
good night.
Yeah. Okay.
Going to stop the recording.
Okay.
Katie,
That
Tom, are we going,
That
are
is
these
not the
gonna be
recording
posted
button.
on on the Kind of Strong website? Or are you just gonna email them out?